Last count, Minister, you're a breath of fresh air, and the two previous speakers stole my thunder, but I do, because I did come in intending to say what they said. So on the behalf of my constituents, I want to thank all the officials in your department for keeping the show on the road. I think they're very underestimated what the Department of Social Protection staff have done right throughout and across the country. When other departments actually, it's impossible to get even now in touch with line officials, as was the case heretofore. So please do convey the thanks of constituents of Dublin South West. My question, Minister, is brief, to ask you the status of the commitment to benchmark pension rates to salaries and inflation as contained in the Roadmap for Social Inclusion 2020-2025, and if you might make a statement on it.
Thank you,
Thank you, Deputy Lahart, and I'll pass on those thanks from Dublin South West. In 2019, my department undertook a consultation process with a number of interested stakeholders to hear their views on possible approaches to indexation of pensions and social welfare rates more generally. This process also included discussions with representatives of the community and voluntary sector at the pre-budget forum in July of 2019, as well as at bilateral meetings with stakeholders. The outcome of these discussions was considered, and in consultation with the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, the Department has developed proposals for setting a formal benchmark for state pension contribution payments and the indexation of future changes in pension rates of payment. The roadmap for social inclusion outlines the potential approach currently under consideration. This approach uses what can be described as a smoothed earnings system, which would ensure that over the long term, the relative value of welfare payments compared to market earnings would be maintained, and that over any short-term period, the real value of purchasing power of these payments would be protected. I have asked my officials to continue to engage with their counterparts in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform with a view to progressing this work.
Deputy.
Minister, that's very welcome news. At present, as you know, social welfare rates, including the state pension, are determined as part of the annual budgetary process, so there's no explicit link between the state pension rate and earnings or prices, and that this means that the real value of the rate can change from year to year depending on the general cost of living and the economic context. The roadmap, as you said, for social inclusion made an explicit and welcome commitment to provide income security for older people, including through benchmarking pension rates to salaries and inflation, and to establish a pension rates commission. While it's been welcome to see the programme for government commit to establish such a commission and for its launch, it remains unclear what work and timeline is in place to introduce this pensions benchmark. Could you give us a timeline, Minister, notwithstanding the welcome I give to the introductory remarks you made on that?
Minister.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Well, just to say that in the last two budgets, while the primary rate of state pension payment did not change, a number of targeted measures were introduced aimed at older people, mostly at risk of poverty, and these included a €10 increase in the living alone allowance and increases in the rate of fuel allowance. In addition, legislation was passed to ensure that the state pension age remained at 66 years. That's at a cost of €221 million this year and over €450 million in a full year. Designing a system of benchmarking and indexation for state pension payments is a complex one, but I understand good progress has been made between officials in my department and the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. And while the pandemic has interrupted implementation, I've asked my officials to make further progress on the issue in the coming months in advance of the budget process.
Thanks, Lascan Corlin. Thanks, Minister. Yeah, as you know, look, Minister, many are heavily reliant on state pension payments, and they're also, for future pensioners who are coming on stream, they're uncertain as to what rate of pension that they will get. So actually, I know what you've said about the increases, and I would absolutely share and support all those increases. But they're legislated for, so they're not anticipated. They're not something that people can count on. So I would urge you, that the next time I raise the question, which will be what is the status of the commitment to benchmarking state pensions, will we have a clearer answer on that? When will we have a clearer answer on when that would be arrived at? And what, you said a little bit about the consultation process. What further details about that consultation process can you give us, and what future planned consultation is to take place to ensure that the methodology for any benchmarking reflects the needs and views of those in retirement? Thanks, Minister.
Minister to conclude.
Sorry, thank you. Thanks, Deputy. Well, as I said in the answer, that one possible approach to pensions indexation is currently under consideration, and that uses what I said can be described as the smoothed earning system, whereby the rate of pension will be linked in the first instance to a percentage of average earnings, but in years where application of the benchmark rate is less than the rate of increases in prices, it will be linked to the rate of inflation. So that system addresses the two key challenges faced in benchmarking or indexation system. The first is that a benchmark linked to just one measure, for example prices, can result in a widening of the gap between the incomes of people dependent on state pensions and other people in society. On the other hand, systems which use multiple benchmarks, for example the so-called twin lock systems, generate a ratchet effect whereby increases in pensions outstrip both prices and wages, ultimately converging on and potentially overtaking wage levels. So there's a bit of work to be done on this, Deputy, and there's no point in me saying otherwise, but can I just say that we'll continue to work on it.
Thank you, Minister.
Sorry.